We live in an intensely urban setting, and there isn't a lot of open space left to get in touch with the natural world.
I had been in my garden and caring for my horses and my animals when I looked up and saw the bulldozers, and I said, what the heck is going on?
People were thinking that something needed to be done.
The threat to this area. In 1970, about 1,800 acres in the wetland was sold to Signal Oil. The Signal Marina development that they had planned for this called for 11,249 homes in 1,800 acres. They did a good job of advertising, of promoting their project, of describing it to all kinds of community groups. But as a result of this, all this promotional material, many citizens, including me, became concerned about the social impact of another big marina that was going to be much bigger than Huntington Harbor, with high-rise and shops and all kinds of things.
In 1992, that plan called for development of 4,884 houses at Bolsa Chica, a 4-lane road across the wetlands, 650-foot jetties out into the ocean. And I wasn't paying attention to any of the plans at Bolsa Chica. I was just on my own, just doing a run one day, and I was running out towards the Mesa Point, and I stopped dead in my tracks because I heard all the birds in the eucalyptus grove. And I said to myself, oh my gosh, this is already a housing development. This is where the birds come to nest and play and have fun.
There was a big effort at the time to put an international LAX-type airport in Chino Hills, and we have maps, and Imperial Highway would have cut right up into it, and the hills would have been bulldozed. They would have had to actually move more dirt than the Panama Canal in order to level the hills, but that was a very big effort. There was a proposal for a national cemetery. Yorba Linda's idea was to build houses on the hills in order to save the hills. So yes, we've fought off another airport, a toxic waste dump, multiple housing proposals, 7 different roads through the park. So yes, there have been many land use battles over the years.
In 1975, I think it was the new general plan for the county that was essentially, they did it by going to the developers and saying, what do you want? And then they wrote it in. They said, okay, chunk, chunk, chunk. And so there were over 3,200 houses for Laguna Canyon. 2 shopping centers, a fire station, a school, of course you'd need a school, and a bunch of roads, you know, in and out of the development.
It was a vacant piece of land, about 2,807 acres on the ocean side of Pacific Coast Highway and the watershed of Morro Canyon. And that first piece of property there, they submitted a modified plan submitted by the Irvine Company, and the planning for it proposed 200,000 square feet of office space in high-rise towers, 1,500 hotel rooms, and 2,600 residences.
But as you recall, in the late 90s, when the housing boom sort of was taking off and everything was, you know, skyrocketing, developers were out there bulldozing everything they possibly could get their hands on. There was a developer that had an interest in Barn Ranch, and that was the same developer that had the entitlements for Serrano Heights. And they had an issue on Serrano Heights of dirt. They had to keep it, they had to balance it on the site. And so they thought one of the things that they could simply do is the backside of Barn Ranch, there is a big bowl. They thought what they could do is just simply dump the dirt back there. solve their problem. Well, what they didn't care about was the environmental impacts, and they didn't care about any of the environmental issues of the property.
The whole upper Newport Bay, which is now a state estuary, would have been ringed with houses and condos and marinas, and it would not be open to the public. That preserve, the estuary itself, is 752 acres. But around it are some uplands, and the uplands were all scheduled for development. There was an 80-acre parcel, and right now the Muth Environmental Interpretive Center is on that parcel. It was 80 acres. It was right adjacent to the upper Newport Bay estuary, and it was scheduled to be housing development. Now that piece, that 80 acres, was next door to another 60 acres of upland property that was scheduled for a 6-lane arterial roadway called University Drive.
So in 2003, and this one has a little bit probably history prior to '03, but in earnest this project kind of came out. It's called Saddle Creek and Saddle Crest. And this project was totaled 600 acres, so this was really, really big, owned by a company called Rudder Development Company, and they had planned to put in 162 homes. Well, how do you put in 162 homes and abide by the guidelines of the specific plan, which say you cannot remove oak trees over 4-inch, I think it's 4.5-inch diameter? Well, anyway, what Rudder Development did was try to amend the plan. Big, big strikeouts in the language of the plan. Instead of it being natural open space, they struck the word natural and just called it permanent open space. So they messed around with the language, tried to, use their remedial grading as part of that open space, and it was really quite, sneaky, and, of course not that sneaky because we noticed it right away.
The activism began with certain individuals who suddenly realized that they just couldn't live with themselves if they didn't stand out and find a way to make a change happen and to halt the degradation of the environment. Looking at the 50 years from 1960s to the present time, it has evolved from first a simmering unrest in the 60s and kind of a subliminal thought process that people were undergoing, thinking that something needed to be done.